Battlefield 6 has officially launched, and we did get a big update today, not necessarily in file size, but the amount of changes. There were over 200 plus changes in today's update 1.0.1.0. This is the day one patch. I will have all of the patch notes listed down in the description. If you want to read over everything, there is a ton of stuff here. So in this video, I'm going to cover all the high points from each individual section. It's going to be a bit of a long one anyway, but I was afraid if I went over everything, this was going to be way too long. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. First of all, the player adjustments. They adjusted the slide and jump mechanics to reduce excessive movement and improve realism. They lowered the jump height and added penalties for repeated jumping. They also increased the inaccuracy when firing while airborne or sliding. They updated the parachute physics for smoother deployment and a realistic acceleration. They fixed an issue with dispersion spikes, takedown glitches, third-person camera bugs, and revive inconsistencies. They also improved the aiming transitions, crouch and vault animations, and general movement responsiveness. They reduced camera shake, refined melee animations, and improved vault detection. When it comes to vehicles, they improved helicopters to now be better and more powerful and more responsive with improved dodge capabilities when a rocket is fired at them. So like an RPG or something like that, it's a free fire rocket. Helicopter pilots will have a better chance at dodging those. And of course, they made them a bit more powerful and a bit more responsive, which is a big plus compared to what we had during the beta. They felt very clunky and pretty much got shot down nonstop, so they should be a bit better now. They also increased the tank turret speed and more effective countermeasures for tanks. They updated the vehicle aiming to be more consistent with your soldier controls, which will be a big help, because it did feel like anytime you were either in the gunner seat or the main tank seat, when aiming, it was either really, really slow and clunky or way too fast and it was uncontrollable. So hopefully that is going to be a big improvement with it being more consistent with your soldier controls now. They also added visible boost bars and refined collision systems for realistic vehicle behavior, and they adjusted the visual and audio feedback for explosions and hit indicators. When it comes to gadgets, they fixed an issue with gadgets unequipping during jumps and excessive rocket blast. They also adjusted the rocket launcher blast radius and damage to improve balance. And what they mean by this is player-on-player rocket damage. So if you're firing a rocket, it's not going to do as much damage as it did during the beta. They were trying to reduce some of that rocket spam when players are interacting with other players while shooting an RPG or some type of free fire rocket. They also said they made sure that the hit registration was actually registering any kind of debris or something that could have been in front of the player if the rocket hit it before it was around the player. They were trying to make sure the player themselves did not take a lot of splash damage compared to what we saw during the beta. They also said they enhanced thermal scopes and fixed multiple reticles, smoke, and projectile detection bugs. When it comes to the thermals, they have made the change to where if you are prone or if you've been shot and you're dying and you're waiting for somebody to revive you, the color through the thermal scope will be a cooler color. They said if a player is sprinting, the color on the scope will be a brighter color. So they're trying to adjust the way enemies appear through a thermal scope. This is, I'm sure, kind of the answer to what a lot of players were asking. Will the thermal scopes be too strong? Will they be way overpowered? We'll still have to wait and see when the game has been out for a couple days. We've had playtime with all the different thermal scopes that are available, but I'm sure they're still going to be making adjustments to thermal scopes, but this is kind of a good start in my opinion. They also talked about the lock-on improvements for multiple rocket systems, including the MBT Law and the MAS-148 Glaive, rebalanced the redeploy beacon, the tugs, and the recon drone mechanics. Now when it comes to the tug changes, it will no longer be destroyed when the owner dies, so that tug will still be there. And also, it can now be deployed at a soldier's feet if the original location is blocked. For the deploy beacon, it now only allows one spawn per player, 4 per squad total, before it self-destructs. The enemy deploy beacons now display an icon on the minimap when pinged, and you can now be deployed at a soldier's feet, or it can be deployed at a soldier's feet if its original location is blocked. So one thing to keep in mind, it has been moved off the Recon class, so the deploy beacon is now on the Assault class. But you'll have to remember that it only allows one spawn per player. It's not like it was in the past where it lasts a long time to either it gets destroyed or it finally destroys itself. You're not going to have those infinite spawns off of it. You're going to have to be kind of mindful and place it out pretty often, or at least after it cools down. When it comes to some other changes here, they adjusted the repair tool, med pen, and supply pouches for balance and functionality. Now when it comes to supply pouch, you can no longer be picked up once deployed. It can no longer restore health to vehicles, and it can no longer push players into the map geometry, and now follows the same ping rules as the repair station, and now resupplies as intended and granted on one additional C4 as overstock. So you're going to only get one additional C4, than it completely overstocking your C4. So they have made a few small changes there, nothing too major when it comes to the supply pouch functionality in general. When it comes to weapons, general recoil and stability adjustments across all weapon types. So they did a complete pass over of recoil and stability to make sure the weapons were not too much like laser beams. I hope they haven't gone too crazy with this, because most players are going to hop into a first-person shooter and they want to be able to use a gun and it not, just be crazy recoil. So I've always been a fan of the way Battlefield handles things. They have weapons that are pretty much lasers that don't do as much damage, but if you're still accurate with them, you can do very well. And then they have some weapons that have some extreme recoil but deal crazy damage. Those are the type of weapons that you really have to find the right attachments for. You really have to learn how to control the recoil, but if you can master that weapon, you can do really well with it. So they've always done a good job of having weapons that are kind of on both sides of the spectrum. They could be laser-like, but not as strong, and then some that have crazy recoil that are very strong. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what all these changes are while we're playing over the next few days. But this does sound like something that I was kind of expecting after the beta, and they have mentioned recoil changes just in general since the beta. They reduced the accuracy when firing mid-jump, and they also improved stability while aiming down sights. They enhanced the reticle visibility and attachment visuals. Now when it comes to aiming down sights, they're meaning if you're aiming down sights while moving or you're aiming down sights while still, you're going to be more accurate, of course, if you're standing still than you would while moving. But also they wanted to adjust how that works stability-wise, how your weapon is handling, and of course, how accurate you are. And you're going to be more accurate than when firing or jumping. Now, one thing that was kind of interesting here, they did make a change to the shotgun, which we all knew was going to happen since the beta. It now takes, of course, more pellets to get that one-shot kill. But one thing they did change was something with bolt-action rifles. It says now first shot boost now apply to every fired shot. So this is a tweak to the bolt-action rifles mechanics for engagements. So they should be a bit better now, pretty much at all ranges. It seems from the way they worded that. When it comes to maps and modes, they did a major rework for rush and breakthroughs layouts based on feedback. So hopefully some of these sites will be easier to access if you are on defense, or easier to defend in general, or also easier for the attacking team to actually be able to attack. Sometimes it felt like the sites were too far away if you were on defense and it was hard to get back there. Sometimes it felt like the defense was just so strong you couldn't even budge them. So that has been readjusted for rush and breakthrough. They also fixed the spawn killing and map exploits. So a lot of those map exploits we experienced during the beta should be fixed. Now there could be some on some of the other maps we didn't get to play during the beta, but at least the getting on rooftops and things like that has been fixed since the beta. The spawn killing kind of goes in line, in my opinion, with rush and breakthrough. There were some parts, and even in Conquest in a few of the maps, where you could actually get kind of off to the side and actually just destroy the team as they spawned in. You could do that in rush or breakthrough. Either way you kind of looked at it. Sometimes you could spawn up right on top of a bomb and annihilate anyone that was around it, or you could kind of get a side angle and destroy everyone that's coming out on defense. So that has been adjusted. We'll have to wait and see exactly how those adjustments are made in each single map. Also, they improved the lighting, traversal, and performance on multiple maps, especially Operation Firestorm. They simplified the respawn system and redefined anti-air balance. When it comes to the UI and HUD, they updated the weapon and gadget names for clarity. They fixed multiple interface bugs across customization, deploy, and option menus. They added improved rank visuals, better loadout organizations, and clearer squad overlays. They enhanced the ping, spotting, and minimap visuals for situational awareness, and they streamlined the gamepad navigations and fixed menu preview inconsistencies. For settings, they updated graphics and display settings across PC and console. They improved the voice chat HUD and accessibility options, added mini-map size adjustments, new camera options, and motion sickness friendly settings. And they redefined default control and customization interfaces for clarity and performance. And I'm hoping they've toned down the amount of settings we have in game. It's kind of crazy when you look at your sensitivity settings. You have 900 different submenus you can click in for each individual setting, and some of them are in some really odd places. Hopefully that has been kind of toned down. That was one big complaint a lot of people had during the beta. It's hard to find all the settings you need, and I think it needs to be just on one single page instead of having different subsections for them. When it comes to the portal, the cross-play option removed from server hosting, and they fixed the AI soldier weapon restrictions in portal mode. For audio, they fixed major mix adjustments to weapon, vehicle, and environmental sounds. They improved directional pings, parachute landings, and low health audio effects. They updated the war tapes, VAL behavior, and refined firing sound fidelity, and they fixed several audio bugs related to vehicle damage and weapon firing delays. And last but not least were the network changes. The netcode enhancements to improve synchronization and reduce fast to death issues, and they fixed damage registration, health update, and latency feedback inconsistencies. And the big one there, of course, is the enhancements to improve how the game responds when you're getting shot. So a lot of people felt like during the beta, the time to death was a lot faster than the time to kill, and that was an issue, along with people taking, or players taking, just kind of random damage or ghost damage from nowhere. They would just spawn in and start taking damage. Those have all been fixed, and hopefully the time to death will feel more in line with the time to kill now that the game is out. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think about all these changes, and if you did read over all the patch notes. Like I said, there were tons and tons of just small things here and there that of course I did not go over, but this was pretty crazy to me for a day one patch. There was a lot of stuff that they took from the beta and kind of implemented into the game from what the community gave them as feedback. So leave me a comment with your thoughts, and if you like the video, hit the like. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.